Coach Stallings, I hope you've had a great week, sir. Welcome into the game in Tuscaloosa.
Brian, it's always good to talk to you, and I'm glad that Alabama made the way in the top four. I think the committee made a right decision and picked it right, and I'm glad to see Alabama in.
Yeah, I'm just curious, when you watch football on Saturday, what was your thoughts going into Sunday? Did you think Alabama would be there? What was your thought process?
Well, I worried about the fact that the committee liked somebody that wins a conference championship, and all of them had won it with the exception of Alabama. So, no question in my mind, Alabama's a better football team than Ohio State. But I wasn't on the committee. But I worried that they would take Ohio State because they won the Big Ten.
Coach, certainly I want to talk about Alabama and Clemson, but you have to be like a proud father looking at what Dabo's been able to accomplish, to look at where he's come from, walking on under you at the University of Alabama, being as an assistant coach, working his way up. I mean, it has to be a proud moment to see what he's been able to accomplish there at Clemson.
That is an extremely proud moment, and I tell you, I was reading in the paper the other day that the number 2 player in the country and the number 3 player in the country have already committed to Clemson. So they're beginning to get some of those good players, and they've got outstanding facilities and a good coaching staff, and they'd love to be a team to be reckoned with for several years. And I can't tell you how pleased I am for Dabo.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And we always, when we get Dabo on or we'll see him down at Media Day, we'll certainly talk about you, and we always try to slip in a couple of questions. No doubt he looks up to you, and to be able to look at what he's been able to accomplish is simply remarkable. Let me ask you about this Alabama-Clemson game, Coach. You've seen both teams. What are you expecting?
I would say that when the ball is snapped, that Alabama will be a little bit of a favorite. I haven't looked at, but Alabama's very fortunate to be in the top 4. They should be there, but they could have not been there. And I think that they realize that, and I think they'll play the top of their game for the next 2 games that take play-ins. I would say that Alabama will be extremely good. So Clemson's getting better, too. So I think it's going to be a good football game. But if I were going to give the odds to one or the other, I believe I would give it to Alabama.
Yeah, and it's a small margin, as you talked about. Alabama is the favorite. It's about 1.5, 2 points out in the experts in the desert. So Vegas has got it about 1.5, 2 point favorite for Alabama.
But how they know, I don't know, but they're right a whole lot more than they're wrong. But Clemson's got a good football team, and they're a relatively young team. I think they've only got 6 seniors, so they're going to be a good football team for several years. And then they get this quarterback that's committed. And Dabo had told me that he's the best he's ever seen, and I'm sure he's seen a lot of good young quarterbacks. I'm talking about high school quarterbacks, and he's already committed to Clemson.
Coach, what is different about bowl practice compared to any other given time? Because you get a little bit more time to prepare. They'll have about 2 weeks, and I know you shuffle in Christmas time there. But I'm just curious, what's different about bowl practice?
Well, you give the guys that don't play a whole lot an opportunity to practice with the first team coaches and so forth. So you'll give your starting players a little bit of a rest. You don't take a chance of them getting hurt in practice. That's about the only difference. Once you get on the location, then it's preparation. Regardless of what day it was that we played the game, when the first day of practice, I referred to it as a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we played on Saturday. And that's the way I prepared for a bowl game. And I've only lost one bowl game my entire career, so I've been very fortunate in that area.
Coach, I want to go back to Georgia and Auburn for just a couple of minutes. When you look at that Georgia football team, they play great defense. They run the football. That kind of reminds you of a Coach Stallings type team a little bit.
Yeah, it did. It surprised me a little bit. I thought that Auburn had sort of been down, and now they came back and had new life, and they beat Alabama. They were top of their game, and now if they can beat Georgia, they're going to be one of the top 4 teams. And not only they got beat badly. And I thought that Georgia looked extremely strong. I think Georgia's going to have a hard time against Oklahoma because, in my opinion, I sort of picked Oklahoma as the number one team. But that's going to be a good football game, but I think Oklahoma will probably win it.
Coach, I want to also spend a couple of minutes. Your alma mater gets Jimbo Fisher. Your thoughts on Coach Fisher going to Texas A&M?
I just can't imagine somebody giving somebody $75 million to coach football over a 10-year period and had to pay off the guy that they got $10 million. So that's lots of money. They wanted somebody that had won a national championship. Jimbo had won it. Obviously, he had a good quarterback, and the quarterback got in a little problem from time to time. And my personal opinion was I felt like that Jimbo should have disciplined him, but they know more about what's happening than I do. But A&M seems extremely happy to get him. That's all I know.
Well, Coach, when you look at Texas A&M, and I've said this, and I look at that as a gold mine program. You know the high school players that come out of that state. I mean, he doesn't really have to recruit, 150 miles away from his campus, the facilities, the money. I think Texas A&M could really challenge Alabama or challenge LSU and Auburn for that second spot right behind Alabama in the SEC West.
I think they can, and I think they should. They've got a relatively young team, and whoever steps into that position, like Jimbo, I think that he's getting a team that hadn't got high expectations, but they've got good football players, and I think that they'll be a team that will be reckoned with without any problem.
Coach, when you look at other coaches that were on your staff that were getting consideration from other schools, and I don't know any examples, but you know, your OC, your DC, and you get interviews from other jobs, what would you tell someone that was on your staff, or maybe even when Coach Bryant advised you, said, hey, you know, if you get a job offer, you got to take an interview. What advice did he give you, or what advice would you share with your coaches that were under you as they look for other job opportunities with head coaching positions?
Well, first of all, there's no substitute for knowledge. You've got to know what you're talking about on both sides of football. Now people are either an offensive coach or a defensive coach. I was involved on both sides of football, but Coach Bryant's advice that he gave to me was go out and make something happen. Don't wait for it to happen. Make it happen. And that's pretty good advice, that you're going to live with what you do and not what your opponent does.
Coach, I don't know if you've heard, but Coach Pruitt, Jeremy Pruitt, somebody that also played under you at the University of Alabama, is a big candidate for Tennessee. Some even have told us today that he may be the favorite to get that job up in Knoxville.
Well, I think Jeremy did an excellent job of coaching for Coach Saban. There's no question about that. And I enjoyed visiting with Jeremy a time or two and before the game when I was there, and I would love to see him get that job. I think he's very capable. He's done an outstanding job coaching the defense for Coach Saban, as has several coaches. You know, the Georgia coach played for Coach Saban, and he's really developing a good reputation of putting out defensive coaches.
There's no doubt about it. Coach Stallings right now visiting with us as we move forward. Let's open up the telephone calls. 205-342-9904, 205-342-9904. Red, as always, on with Coach Stallings. Good afternoon, Red.
Good evening, Coach. I hope you're doing well, sir.
Hey, I'm doing fine, and I hope you're feeling well, my friend.
Doing well, Coach. Doing well. Coach, with Christmas coming up, I got a two-part Christmas question for you.
All right.
Number one, in your eyes, what was John Mark's favorite Christmas present? And number two, did you ever have any trouble with him trying to sneak into the living room on Christmas Day before you and this Ruth Ann got up?
First of all, when it get time for Johnny to go to bed, the kids would run to the window, and we could think that we could hear the reindeers and see the lights, and we'd say, Johnny, you got to go to bed because Santa Claus is trying to come. He's not going to come while you're here. And he would run in bed and go to sleep. So that was always a fun time. Another time when I was coaching for the Cowboys, a friend of mine dressed up like Santa Claus. and came to the house and knocked on the door, and there Johnny was. The guy went running out. Johnny was chasing him, and he lost his hat. He lost his hat. But anyway, that's a good memory that we had during the Christmas vacation with Johnny. I can't tell you what his favorite gift was because everything he got, he was extremely proud of it.
Now, I can believe that, Coach. And, Coach, we sure miss him and you and Miss Ruth Ann. And if we don't get to talk again, I want to wish you and your family a Merry Christmas. We love y'all, Coach. Tell Miss Ruth Ann hello, and we'll talk to you later, my friend.
I'll do it, and good to talk to you, and have a good day. Thank you.
That's always, Coach, you think about Christmas time, and I know we're going to get to phone calls at 205-342-9904, but to see I could, as you were telling that story with John Mark, I could just sort of picture that look on his face that we've seen so often, that smile that he had kind of went through my mind as you was talking about John Mark.
Yeah, we would say, Johnny, we can see Santa Claus coming, and all the girls would run to the door, and they would think that they could see him. I mean, he'd take off for his bed.
Oh, I love it. I love the stories like that. Let's go to JK. JK, what you got for Coach Stallings this afternoon?
Hey, Coach, how you feeling today? You sounded pretty strong, my friend.
JK, I'm feeling good. Thank you. I've got a good report when I went to the doctor, and I'm feeling pretty good. Thank you for asking.
Well, that's excellent. Coach, I got one simple question for you, and I'm going to get off the phone and let some other callers get in. How are we going to get off the field on third down on either side of the ball, Coach?
Now, say that again.
How is Alabama going to get off the field on third down, since that's been our plague over the last 2 or 3 games, and we can't seem to get off the field on third down? We can't seem to stay on the field on offense. So how are we going to do it, Coach?
If you could just look at one statistic and tell whether or not your team had success, you look at the effectiveness of third down, both sides of the ball. And up until the last game or two, Alabama's been extremely good on third down, and I think they'll get it back in shape. That's something they'll work on during the little vacation period before the game, and I think we'll see an improved team on third down for Alabama.
Coach, you spend time, and we'll go back to the phone calls, but because of bowl practice, and I think the first day that Alabama can go out on the practice field's the 15th, and I know the staff is busy right now with recruiting because of the early signing period, but how much time do you spend self-scouting at this point and looking back at what you did right, maybe what things you could clean up a little bit?
Well, your quality control ought to tell you that week after week after week. So I had a quality control board that was put in my office after every game, so I knew exactly how we stood on every phase of the game, offensively, defensively, and in the kicking game. So it was no guesswork. When we would get a little bad in a certain area, we would emphasize it, and you can turn anything around if you put enough emphasis on it. For example, Alabama needs to become a better third down team, both sides of the ball. I bet that's something they'll work on during the Christmas practice.
Let's go 205-342-9904. Coach Stallings in Texas. Why don't we stay in the state of Texas? Jared, listening to us in Houston, Texas. Jared, you're on with Coach Stallings.
How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
You know, Coach, before I ask my question, I want to let you know how happy I am that you're feeling better, that your health is moving back in the right direction. We've been praying for you out here in Texas, and we're really, really pleased to hear all the good reports we've been getting on you. So I'm happy about that.
Let me tell you, those prayers help too, and I appreciate every one of them, my friend.
You'll always be in our prayers. Anyway, I wanted to ask you a question real quick.
All right.
You know, when Alabama beat Florida State earlier in the year, you know, that game was supposed to be, maybe a preview to the college football playoff, and there was a lot of hype and a lot of hoopla around that football game. And Alabama handled them pretty well, knocked their quarterback out late in the fourth quarter. So the pundits leading up to this college football playoff didn't seem to want to place very much value on that win. What kind of value do you place on it? And do you think that win eventually had an impact on what the committee decided to do when they put Alabama in?
Well, I don't know whether they did or not, but if you remember back when Alabama played Florida State was a high-ranked team. I think they're third or fourth team in the country.
Yep.
That they
correct.
didn't perform very well, but Alabama had nothing to do with that other than when they played them. So I think the committee probably looked back and said, look, we've sort of been handicapped in Alabama for playing Florida State, but when they played them, Florida State was undefeated, and they were a high-ranked team, and whether or not that had anything to do with it, because I'm not on the committee, don't even know anybody's on the committee.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. You know, I was trying to get Kirk Herbstreit to respond to me on Twitter. I'd asked him a couple times and asked him how he valued that win, and because him and his buddies were talking about, you know, could be the preview to the national championship, and they were hyping up Florida State, and they didn't act like they wanted to give Alabama any credit for beating them. So I'm glad to see, you know, that you felt like it was a good win and that Alabama was able to get the playoff.
They're both undefeated and highly ranked teams when they played.
Well, Coach, you think about scheduling, conflicts when you think about Florida State and Alabama. You got to go back and give the coaches, for one, Jimbo Fisher and Coach Saban. I mean, that's a big game that you schedule early on. A lot of risk taking when you know that Florida State's going to be there, Alabama's going to be there. You got to go back and give those guys credit for even getting that one on the schedule.
No question about it. So many teams play these gimme games early on so they can win 3 or 4 games, and I really appreciate the fact that Alabama and several other teams play good teams to kick off the season.
Well, Coach, that's all we have for you today. Certainly always enjoy the conversations, and we'll talk again next week, Coach. I hope you have a great weekend.
Ryan, good to talk to you, and let's hope that the Alabama-Clemson game be what we expect it to be and make the best team win.